all that space being taken up by birds, it didn't leave much room for us humans. So it took a while to find a spot that was big enough for our stuff. Mum told me I needed to put on sunscreen, but I already took care of that back at the house. Because when it comes to protecting my skin, I don't mess around. The more time you spend out in the sun, the older you look later on. And my goal is to be one of those grandpas who looks great for their age. It's so nice to spend time with your mother. Actually, this is my wife. Even when I've got my skin slathered in sunscreen, I try to stay in the shade as much as possible. But that's not always easy, especially when your family only has one beach umbrella. Back in the old days, people used to carry around these little umbrellas called parasols, so they could took their shade with them. And sometimes I feel like I was born in the wrong era, because from the paintings I've seen of that period, those people really knew how to live. The other thing those guys had right were their bathing suits, which covered up a lot, because these days when you go to the beach, there's just a little too much skin for my taste. I've noticed that the more fit a person is, the fewer clothes they wear, and if I ever get in shape, believe me, I'm gonna be the exact same way. Once everyone got settled, Mum tried to get us to join her down at the water for a swim, but I already decided before we got here that I wasn't going to swim on this trip for a bunch of reasons. For starters, in the ocean you can't see through this water, which means you never know what's under the surface. And even though Mum told me there hasn't been a shark attack on Rutty Neck Island in 100 years, I don't want to be one to break that streak. Mum always says that the sharks are misunderstood and that they're not really a threat to humans, but all you need to do is take one look at how many teeth a shark has in its mouth to know what they're made of for one purpose, and that's biting. The only good thing about sharks is that they've got a thing on their back that pops out of the water, so at least you know when one is coming, or at least most of the time you do. In this picture, he thinks this is a shark because he's wearing a fin and ran away out of the water. But if a shark somehow gets born without a fin one day, it's going to be bad news for us humans. So I'm just hoping sharks don't suddenly mutate into no fin variety. I learned about evolution in science class and how animals adapt with mutations. And anteaters used to have short noses, and then one was randomly born with a long one. It was easier for that guy to get at the ants deeper in their anthills, which meant it could get more food. And after that, that short-nosed anteater got left in the dust. The same sort of thing might happen with human beings, and somebody could be born with some weird change that gives them an advantage over everyone else. But sometimes it takes millions of years for there to be even a small change in a species, which means I won't live long enough to see it happen. So I've been exposing myself to lots of gamma rays to hurry things along. This kid at school named Albert Sandy always says that one day people are going to develop gills so they can breathe underwater. And even though that sounds kind of awesome, I hope it doesn't happen to me first, because the bullying would be pretty terrible. If we need to live underwater one day, I'm going to have to wear a wetsuit full time. My skin gets wrinkly after 20 minutes in the bathtub, so I can't imagine what it would look like after a week of swimming in the ocean. Living underwater might not be that bad. Actually, for one thing, nobody will get bent out of shape about the small stuff like juice spills. Oops. It's fine. But if the ocean is our future home, we need to start treating it better. And it's not too hard to see why sharks are always biting people. Something that annoys me is that Aunt Gretchen encourages her twins to pee in the ocean, at least. I'm just hoping that's all they're doing in there. Even if I did want to swim in the ocean today, I wouldn't feel safe doing it. The lifeguards are all teenagers, and I wouldn't put my life in the hands of someone who isn't even allowed to vote. Dad used to be a lifeguard back when he was a teenager, so he's been trying to get Roger to earn his life-saving certificate. But it's kind of hard for me to imagine Roger in charge of everyone's safety. One of the reasons I stopped swimming at the beach is because I got nervous the lifeguards weren't paying enough attention. So whenever we go to the beach, I'd always introduce myself to them to make sure they knew my name and what I looked like. That way I figured I had a better chance of getting rescued if I was struggling out there. I'd even bring them snacks a few times a day because you've got to take care of the people who take care of you. Extra pickles just the way you like it. It's the same reason I never forgot to send my pediatrician a Christmas card during the holidays. Happy holidays from your favorite patient, Greg Heffley. I could tell the lifeguards at Rocky Neck Island were totally distracted with their phones, and if a rogue wave comes crashing to shore, I doubt they'd even notice. So I was happy to just lie under the umbrella and take it easy today, but there were these guys walking around the beach using metal detectors, which made it kind of hard to relax. It made me think there could be a pirate treasure buried a few feet beneath there where I was sitting, and I felt like I should be digging instead of taking it easy on my blanket. I started imagining what it would be like to find a chest full of gold. You'd probably want to keep it a secret from everyone, or your friends and family would constantly be hitting you up for money, which could get annoying after a while. Looks like Junior's gonna need braces. But I'm guessing they'd figure it out anyway, because when you pay for everything in gold coins, people will start talking. Keep the change. I actually have no idea what a single coin is worth, but it's gonna be worth a lot since gold is pretty rare. Back in the olden times, people used to pay for everything in gold and silver, but then some genius came up with the idea of printing paper money, and somehow they got everyone else to get along with it. This little piece of paper with an old guy's face on it is worth 5 cows and a goat. Sounds fair. One of these days, someone's gonna come up with a new form of money, and that'll replace the system we got now. And I'm just hoping that someone is me. I've been testing the waters with the new monetary system, so I came up with last Christmas. I convinced Rowley that cucumber seeds were really valuable, and I traded a handful of them for his new video game controller. Fortunately, Mr. Jefferson found out about our trade and came down to my house to take Rowley's controller back, but he never returned my seeds, though, so I'd better not see any cucumbers growing in the Jefferson's gardens this year, or we're going to have a difficult conversation. I decided it wasn't worth going to the trouble of looking for buried treasure on the beach, though. I figured if you start digging, you're just as likely to find a skeleton as a treasure chest. And I'm sure the paperwork you have to file for that kind of thing is insane. I felt kind of bad for Dad today, because he was the only person in our family who didn't get to relax. That's because he spent the whole afternoon going back and forth to the beach house, grabbing stuff people forgot to bring with them. And after Dad went back to the house 3 times for Aunt Cakey, I realized she was messing with him for fun. I'm back with the suntan lotion. Thought I told you to get the one that was SPF 50. When Dad finally got a break, he took a tuna sandwich out of the cooler and sat down to eat it, but a seagull dive-bombed him and snatched it right out of his hand. Gah! I had issues with seagulls in the past and I wasn't willing to let one steal my food. So I took my sandwich with me to the bathhouse, which wasn't the best eating experience I ever had. I was pretty thirsty, so I planned on grabbing a bottle of water from our cooler, but the family on the blanket next to us was helping themselves to our drinks. Glug, glug, glub, 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 glub. We confronted them about taking our water, but they said they thought the cooler was theirs. That wasn't very believable, though, since our name was written on the side. Things got a little uncomfortable, so the other family packed up their stuff and left. I didn't want another family stealing our drinks, so I wrote something on the lid of the cooler with a marking to discourage anyone else from opening. Human organs, keep refrigerated. By that time, it was the middle of the afternoon and the sun was blazing. So Mum and Dad asked to go back to the house and bring us another case of water to replace the bottles those people took. I was glad Dad was getting more water because it's important to stay hydrated. My science teacher said that the human body is 60% water, but that seems a little high to me because if people really were 60% water, we'd all look pretty freaky. But maybe he's right, and the reason old people are so wrinkly is that they're leaking really slowly. In fact, I made it my personal mission to keep my great uncle Colton hydrated because he looked like he'd be down to 15% by now. Dad got back with the case of water, and he also brought a big bag of beach toys Mum told him to fetch from the house, and even though I wasn't in the mood to break a sweat, this was one of those times when I could tell Mum wasn't gonna take no for an answer. Mum pulled out all sorts of old-fashioned toys that she said used to keep her and her sisters busy for hours when they were kids. But people must have been wired a little different back then, because none of this stuff was doing anything for me. The only toy that had some promise was a kite, but it was too hard to steer it while watching where I was stepping. Oops. And after making a bunch of people mad, I decided flying a kite wasn't worth the hassle, so I tied the string to the handle of the cooler and went back into relaxation mode. But I must have dozed off and had no idea how much time went by. The thing that woke me was the ocean water soaking our beach blanket. The tide was coming in fast and my family wasn't anywhere to be found, so I had to gather up our stuff before everything washed out to sea, but that was easier said than done, especially without any help. I was so focused on collecting our things that I wasn't thinking about what else was in the water, and that's when I felt something disgusting attach itself to my leg. I remembered Mum saying this island used to have a jellyfish problem, and I was positive that what this thing was. But in my panic, I couldn't remember what you were supposed to do in the case of a jellyfish attack. The best I could think of was to stop, drop, and roll, and that's what I went with. It turns out that what I thought was a jellyfish was actually a clump of seaweed, and I guess the lifeguards were used to these kinds of false alarms because nobody leapt out to my rescue. Shriek! After I calmed down a little, I rinsed my leg off in the ocean, but I should have been paying better attention because I got really decked by a wave. Wah! I dragged myself out of the water, and even though I was a little wobbly, at least I was out of danger. But now there was a pile of sand trapped in the netting of my bathing suit, and people were staring to notice. Hee. I couldn't just drop my drawers and flush out my bathing suit, so I moved to deep water where no one else could see below my waist. I tried emptying out the netting, which wasn't easy to do since I was fighting against the undertow. All of a sudden, I had the lifeguard's attention, and from the way she reacted, she must have thought I was using the ocean as a toilet. Tweet, tweet! She tried to get me to come into shore, but I wasn't budging, and I guess lifeguards must train for this sort of thing, because she hauled me to the shore in no time flat. By that point, half our stuff had washed away, and the rest was soaking wet. Lucky the cooler didn't get swept away, so at least I had a place to sit and catch my breath. Pant, pant. I remembered there was still a few bottles of water in the cooler, and I pulled out the ones that were left. But I didn't realize those water bottles were the only thing weighing the cooler down, and the kite yanked it clear off the ground. I ran after the cooler, but stayed just out of reach, and I must have actually caught up with it if there was so many obstacles in my way. The cooler finally got wedged in some sand dunes, and I finally had a chance to grab it before it went airborne again. But when I realized where I was standing, I decided maybe I should leave the cooler be. I left the piping plover area as quick as I could, and luckily nobody saw me. And then I went back to our umbrella so I could get out of the sun, because when it comes to protecting your skin, you can never be too careful. Monday, when we got back to the beach house last night, all I wanted to do was jump in the shower, but we only have one bathroom for 13 of us, and I had to wait my turn. By the time I finally got in there, it was so steamy I could barely see, and it wasn't easy maneuvering between my aunt's wet bathing suits without touching anything. But my plan was to take a quick shower and get out, but there was 6 inches of sludgy grey water in the bathtub, and the drain was clogged with hair. Worse than that, there was no hot water left, so I had to take a cold shower. But I figured it was worth it because I wanted to feel clean, fresh for when we went out to eat. The only problem was that I couldn't get dry. Everyone had used up the towels, so I had to use toilet paper to try and dab myself. It was taking way too long, so I tried shaking off and the way dogs do, but I couldn't really get the hang of it, and all I did was get water everywhere. I guess I should have tried cleaning up after myself, because Aunt Keiki accused me of peeing on the toilet seat, so now there's a rule in the house that us guys have to sit down when we go to the bathroom. Everyone was mad at everybody else for taking too long, so Mum created a bathroom schedule with 15-minute time slots, and I got the 6:30 p.m. shift. I can't really control when I need to use the bathroom, though, and neither can Manny, who went out of the window instead of waiting for his 9:30 p.m. shift to start.